Welcome back to another episode of Perfect Faraday. My name is George Merchant, and this is
Jeremiah Evans, episode number 3.
Episode number 3. We're going to talk about why you can't fix your own stuff and the problems that we're facing there, and how we can go about fixing them and addressing those issues. I want to give a shout out to Mr. Louis Rossmann, who's on YouTube. Give him a nice little round of applause. You have, show his beautiful mug right there.
There he is.
That sexy Yankee up there, up in New York, working hard, getting it done. We really greatly appreciate it. You guys can check him out on YouTube. He's got a lot of great videos. He's got a free repair workshop there. He teaches people of all ages how to do different type of electronic repair.
Yeah, we'll leave a link in the bottom to
we'll
his
leave a link
channel.
in the description to his channel. Mr. Rossmann, we really do greatly appreciate what you're doing out there. We don't work on the consumer electronics side like Mr. Rossmann does. He works on tablets and phones and laptops and those kind of things. We don't work on that stuff here. We work on industrial stuff, pump motor control, automation, robotics, touchscreens, user interface stuff.
Industrial board repair.
Industrial board level repair. So we're doing a lot of the same similar activities, but we're doing it on the manufacturing side. Most of our customers are manufacturing, and then you have some larger utility type stuff, like water treatment and whatnot. But for the most part, our stuff is manufacturing and industrial, and we face a lot of the same issues. We come across the same problems, the same roadblocks, and we really appreciate somebody sticking it out there and doing their best to try to make a difference in the right to repair side.
Yeah.
We're kind of in a place right now where we have this throwaway mentality, and it grew and kind of infected even the industrial side of things. It's even pushed into that now, and it's caused a whole lot of problems.
Yeah, honestly, I guess it's been a while that we've been a throwaway society. I remember in my grandpa's time, he made his fortune before he became a real estate mogul, as it were. I mean, he owned a few properties, but he made his money initially like repairing TVs back in the day when they were 3,000 pounds, and the screen was like this big, full of vacuum tubes. But back in the day, almost everything was repairable, and I don't know maybe in the 70s going into the 80s, like we just started more and more thinking it was okay to
just throw it away.
Yeah, and always get the latest and greatest every year, because why even bother trying to repair it?
Yeah, and now we're at a point where we're facing some economic headwinds and waste issues, environmental issues, and what we're looking at right now is that we can't get some of the parts, we can't get some of the finished goods and everything. So I think that it's even more important now to be looking at repairing and fixing things rather than spending tons of money on it and everything. So
yeah, for sure, electronic waste is a big detriment to the environment. It's something, we can monitor just the same as carbon. We're just always like, what's that carbon, carbon emissions. I mean, I know that may raise the temperature a little bit, but electronics waste is extremely toxic, like what do you think that probably does, to...
Yeah, there's some nasty stuff in there that you don't want getting into your groundwater and stuff. So there definitely is stuff there. I can make an argument for or against the whole carbon type thing. That's maybe for a different episode.
Yeah.
But the actual problems that we face, the amount of trash that we're producing, all the pile up of stuff from this waste. A lot of it's just not very recyclable. So you really got to take care, I think, to make these things last longer and look at them as not just a throwaway item. I don't think we should have so many electronics being produced that we're just tossing in the trash and not doing anything about it when it can be repaired. And there's a lot of pride people get in being able to maintain and fix their own stuff. But the right to repair thing, what was happening, if people aren't too familiar with it, is that companies were in essence blocking, and not that long ago, you didn't have to go back too far. We've got a lot of old prints here and stuff like that OEMs would provide like prints for their stuff, test, um, uh, instructions, things like that. Give you voltage levels at different spots.
Yeah, there'd be like more test points clearly marked
Yeah.
on boards and that. So.
And you could buy the parts. That was the other thing too, is that you could buy all the parts. Whereas nowadays, what we're running into is that they'll make the part, and they won't sell it to anybody else but the OEM.
Yeah, or even more abusive, like on handheld electronics and laptops, and that I know that Mr. Rossmann's dealt with. If you watch some of his videos, and we are going to put a link to his channel on the bottom. Really, like check him out, but. Companies like, I mean, I don't want to talk about too many, but like Apple, like just like the little camera sensor, something simple, the screen or whatever is like ID locked, where if you switch it out, you have to have their proprietary software, which you can't have unless, you have the permission through them, to have the software to like rekey that. Like literally the whole device won't work on some of the stuff, just changing out, like a camera.
And how this affects you. Say you're not a person that really cares so much about the repair. Like you're just like, it doesn't represent that much of your income. You're not as worried about it and everything. Also, you got to think about getting the stuff that you need, because what is happening is it's affecting us on the manufacturing side, and it's affecting our ability to keep machines running in a timely fashion. Especially right now with the supply crunch, we've got parts that are so far of a lead time right now that repair is the only option. Like literally, that's the only option, and these companies don't want to, try to help out at all in any way in sharing that information and making that available. And a lot of the excuses they use are bogus excuses. That's the other thing that always really bothered me, was they would talk about, oh, but we're going to be showing something that's like patented or some sort of secret tech, and that's baloney. Any long-time electrical technician or electrical engineer, board level, somebody that actually understands the stuff that comes on this board knows that most of this stuff on here is not proprietary, and they don't need every bit of information on, say, the part that is. Most of this stuff is populated. If you look really closely at it, I'm going to get that in there for you. If you look really closely at something like that, most of the stuff that you see on there, those small components right there, none of that is proprietary technology whatsoever. It's mostly resistors, capacitors, really, really common parts. Even some of the chips that you see on there are actually extremely common parts. They're generic parts that several manufacturers make, or several did make. And then you might have a larger like processor or something like that. And in that case, we don't need to know every little bit about that processor. All we need to know is like, how much voltage is it supposed to have coming in, its signal voltage coming out, that kind of thing. We don't need to go into the detail of how they made it, their manufacturing process. These are deeply held trade secrets, and I can respect that. I don't have a problem with that. You wouldn't want to disseminate that information and basically just broadcast that to the world, even though a lot of that stuff is common knowledge now. Most of the stuff on that board right there is anything that 10 minutes in a classroom, somebody's going to pick up and kind of understand what it is. Like I said, it's mostly common components. So what we want to kind of talk about a little bit here is, we're going to move into here. So congratulations again to Mr. Rossmann. I think you're a big pusher of this right here. So New York actually passed its digital right to repair legislation. Now, in one sentence I'm saying congratulations, and in another sentence I'm a little bit upset about this. And the reason I'm a little bit upset about this isn't because because they passed something. I'm glad that they passed something. There's some sort of movement in the right direction, but I feel like they're just kind of throwing a bone, like a really, really kind of small little nibble. And to the people complaining, maybe get them to shut up about it, because they're thinking, oh, just the consumers, because that's going to be the masses. It's going to be most of the people and everything. But if you take a closer look at this right now, you take a real close look. However, the bill's scope has been narrowed. Originally included provisions for agricultural equipment, the stuff that grows our food. Public service equipment, like the stuff that treats the water. And home appliances, Well, that's kind of everything, right? That's right there. Now, the bill only focuses on devices such as computers, phones, and tablets. Gaming consoles are not covered by the Act either, according to Proctor. All right, so when you stop and take a look at what's actually in the bill and what it actually covers, you're glad to see some movement in this area, but at the same time, you kind of get a little bit upset about it because you're like, hey, wait a minute, there's some very, very important stuff here. Now, here at ECS, we do component level repair, and we do tons of repairs, most of our repairs, no prints, anything like that, because we understand how these things are supposed to work. Kind of like a light bulb, if you will, if you want to simplify things. Power goes to it, the light comes on. If the light doesn't come on and there's power going to it, the light bulb's bad, right? So we can break some of this stuff down in understanding and experience with working with enough of it to get a good idea of, you know, where the failure is in it and why the failure is in it. But that also lengthens the time it takes to repair. And then the other side of that coin is actually being able to get the parts. Some of the repairs we do, we actually have to scavenge parts from other stuff, test it, make sure that it's good, and then go ahead and put it in another device. And when we're doing stuff like that, we're just trying to keep people running. We're trying to keep food on the shelves. We're trying to keep gadgets in your hands. We're trying to keep gasoline flowing. We're trying to keep clean water. We're trying to keep wastewater from discharging nasty water. It goes into everything. And the problems that we're facing in this is the same problems that consumers are facing in just getting their own stuff fixed. It's probably not, all life-threatening if your phone doesn't work, or your laptop doesn't work. And there's a lot of stuff on the secondhand market, too, that's pretty affordable. So you can usually get something that can take the place of it pretty easy. The problem in our field is you can't just grab a whatever laptop, you can't just grab a whatever controller to get somebody's automation system up and running. It's got to be the exact same thing if you want to do it in a timely fashion. You can't just rebuild the system in a few days and expect that everything's going to go and be back up and running, especially when you have things that are running so high demand. We kind of briefly touched on lean manufacturing principles before, and everything's just running right there at the edge.
Yeah, so, and to go into that, two factors as far as the lean manufacturing. A lot of he touched on that, I think, on the addendum to episode 1. But part of the lean manufacturing is not having inventory of like replacement parts and that too. Yep. If you watch that episode, he goes over why they don't keep stuff on shelves. But so a lot of companies would sell that off in mass. Well, guess who bought up a lot of these extra parts that are very specific parts that are needed? Well, that would be China.
China.
Yep.
China.
So that's kind of what we're going to move into. So I don't know if y'all are aware, and I've asked quite a few people, but I don't know if most people even know what the purpose of Hong Kong was in China, even though it resided in China. It was like an autonomous zone. And as such, basically, countries went through Hong Kong or whatever, to, I don't know, banking and that.
They were the middleman, because what it was is that there was so much corruption, and especially at one time there were still areas of China that were developing, and there was so much corruption throughout mainland China and so much insolvency and banking issues that they wanted to do business through a stable system, so that if somebody ordered something from China, they went through this more stable system to get what they needed, whether it was, chips or, pillow foam or whatever it was, many different products, whatever those items were, they would do the transactions moved through Hong Kong, and then they were sort of the hub of the wheel where the spokes moved out from. And one of the reasons we liked that is because the way Hong Kong was run, because Hong Kong wasn't run like the rest of China. Hong Kong was sort of its own entity that communicated and had ties through China, but everything kind of came through Hong Kong, and it was a much more trusted site in order to do business.
Yeah.
People on that don't pay attention to like the geopolitical sort of things and the economic impacts of these sort of things can easily miss these sort of details and
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at. A lot of people I've asked don't realize that somewhere between 2020 and 2021, kind of during the pandemic, that China basically finally went in and took full control of Hong Kong and took away their autonomy. I don't know if you want to like switch to that.
Yeah.
So Hong Kong's autonomy under China's one country, two systems framework allowed for special treatment in trades, exports, socio-economical exchange. This unique status laid the foundation for bilateral treaties with the U.S. and other countries with respect to consular affairs and taxation agreements, aviation. I mean, pretty much like what we were just talking about.
Yeah, and this is from the Taipei Times. We'll make sure to include this in the links in the video. But this is a good read.
It's pretty huge, like really what happened,
Yeah.
I went to buy a computer. I'd bought like from this manufacturer directly like 2 times before, and when I went to buy a third computer, it was probably like the beginning of last year. I was told by the manufacturer that they were no longer allowed to sell in U.S. dollars, so I had to find a way, and I had to get a credit card that switch to the yuan first. But this is basically something China like wanted Hong Kong for, outside of the fact that they were a democracy, and the CCP is just not okay with democracy. They have, I can't even remember what they call it, like their own form of democracy that's not a democracy. It's a autocracy or right, autocracy. That's
yeah. It's top down. It's top down rule.
Yeah.
Either way we want to look at it, and ultimately the CCP is going to get their way. It doesn't matter, and I think that we recognize that on the world stage now. I would hope that most people recognize that on the world stage.
Yeah.
I know it's dangerous on YouTube to speak out against China.
Yeah, and anytime we're talking out of China, it's not the Chinese people; it's the CCP. I don't want anybody to think
Let this be this for the record going forward for anybody listening is that like, as a freedom-loving American. Like I love the Chinese people. I don't have a problem with the Chinese people. Even from a very young age, I've been blessed in my life to know some people that came out of China, some older people that escaped some pretty terrible conditions in China, and it really spoke to me. It really just spoke deeply to me.
Yeah, I mean.
We really do.
My entire lifetime, China has like had all sorts of horrible human rights, the CCP or whatever, like human rights violations, and we've just been okay with it. The more we've like
just keep on trading with them, getting our cheap stuff.
Yeah,
getting our cheap stuff. So,
and that's just not right.
Yeah. I mean, so what we're looking at here is, and as we segued into this talk about. China and what they're dealing with is we have I got to tell everybody buckle up because we are on a thread right now where we're going to be in a bad way. Now you may have recently heard, if you were paying attention to some of the news about Intel and some of the big chip fab places that are going to be opening up in the United States. These are very, very large investments, huge investments, because chip fab stuff is actually very expensive. Very, very expensive.
Very time consuming to set up.
Time consuming to set up, yes. They're very time consuming to set up. The clean rooms that are required for this kind of stuff. I've done some clean room work, and it doesn't, the work that I've done doesn't approach the level of these types of clean rooms. These are very, very important, and they're very large systems. There's a lot of cooling required. I mean, they're complicated systems. Fascinating, but the problem that we have is that the investments that are going into these, one, they're not going to come online. They're not going to really be producing until about 2025. Okay, that's one of the issues. But that it's almost like a moot point, because
is it moot or mute?
What I say, mute?
Yeah, I think it's moot.
Moot point. Yeah. Well, you know me. I like that.
You know me and my words.
Throwing those words. But so the point is, not even really negligible at that point, because what's going to end up happening is they're chasing high-end chips, and the high-end chips where they have the most profit. That's wonderful. I'm not going to put anybody down for trying to make money. I'm not going to put anybody down for trying to make a profit.
Yeah, when you have like a wafer this big, and you can make, $2 million off of it.
Yeah.
Why are you going to chase after the thing that makes you like
$50?
Well,
maybe it's not that.
I was going to say like maybe $10,000.
Yeah. So if your process in the same line can make you X amount of dollars, why are you going to make the lesser Y amount of dollars? So I understand that, and I do get that, but the problem that we're facing in the U.S. is not really much of a lack of advanced chips, because most of the functionality that we have now could be maintained. Like, say we just said, okay, we're not going to try to push anything further for a few years while we get this stuff straight out. Like, there's plenty of advanced chips available. When I say advanced chips, I'm usually talking about processors and graphics processors, maybe some math processors and things like that. We're talking about like high-end processing. Those sell for quite a bit more. And he's like, uh-oh. Sign said, damn phone! Tell you what, I am running a habitat for rejects. But, so, that's why I came in this morning and I told everybody when I walked through the door, am I running a halfway house for rejects? And a voice in the corner said, yes. So, that's how it goes. But that's how we toughen them up, right? Make them ready for a maintenance job.
Yeah.
So when you take a look at a board like this right here, most of the cost of something like this actually is in like a processor. Okay, that's like by far, it'll be like 99% of the cost. All these others, a double-sided board, all these other smaller components and everything, they actually sell for fractions of a penny. You buy them in bulk, and a machine automatically, like a human being isn't placing all of this stuff on here. They're actually automatically placed. You actually don't even want to trust a human to do it because they won't get it lined up right. So you go through, it goes through and it really quickly. You can look up some YouTube videos on it. It's a really interesting process. But they really quickly tap them down real fast on a paste on the back and then run it through heat, and then they just kind of stick where they need to go. A little bit more in the actual connectors because there's some real material there, and then the processor itself is really where the biggest cost is in any sort of control system.
That was prior to more recently.
Yeah. So, and then, well, that's true. A lot of the prices on even the little stuff has gone up quite a bit.
Yeah, from cents on the dollar to, I don't know, some of the components that we used to probably could get for under $1, like $40 now.
Yes.
Per component.
Yeah. So,
and we're going to get into why that is in this next article we're going to pull up, but I'll let you finish.
So this right here is very critical to point out the difference between saying like a high end, that may not even be that really a high end of a chip, but the processor and then kind of the rest of it, right? This right here, if all you make is this right here, it's not going to do you very good, is it? Because that's only one component that's needed for all of that. Even though the rest of it won't be as much combined as the main processor would be, that you still run into problems because you don't have the building blocks to make it. Are you going to build a house with, just a water heater or something like that, or just the AC unit, no roof, no nothing else, no foundation? No, you got to have everything else that goes into it, and that's pretty important. And that's one of the problems that we're facing, is that these chip foundries and stuff that are coming into the U.S. that are going to be coming into play aren't going to be dealing with the lower end stock of things that we need. And if we want real security, real electronic security, for our military equipment, for our vehicles, for our automation and manufacturing, everything across the board, to be self-reliant, we have to return to building all of those components. I thought you were going to pull up that next one for me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
See how professional we are.
Yeah.
All right, so guys.
Hey, we got better mics.
Yeah. Oh, look, and it went backwards on me when I hit that button. All right, so yeah, we did get better mics. All right, so TSMC. Some of you guys have heard about this. Taiwan's semiconductor manufacturing company. So TSMC they're the big dog. And when I say big dog, they are pretty much,
Here, this
there
is
we
a
go.
graphic.
Thank you. That's
You can look at their market share. This is their capital, but that directly spells out to how much they make, like how much, you can imagine. I don't know the actual percentage of like components between them, but you can imagine this guy down here, Tower Semiconductors, is probably making 1% of the components that TSMC is, and TSMC doesn't just make, they have the chip fabs that make, graphics chips for Nvidia or AMD, but they also make some of the smaller components in that. It's I think they call it like, what is it, like the something city or whatever, It's a huge chunk of land that is predominantly just pumping out the chips for the world.
Yeah, yeah, and so when you take a look at that graphic, and again we'll include these links for you. When you take a look at that graphic, TSMC is 54% of that. Samsung coming in next at 17, and what
Samsung predominantly makes memory and like
yes,
some components or whatever for TVs, but
yes,
when I was doing the research, but I don't want to show you like 15,
yeah,
like different articles.
We're not trying to confuse it too much, but it is important to understand where these different components come from. It's sort of like understanding what goes into the car or goes into your house or whatever. Like, where do these materials come from, and where do we need them and stuff. So and I think you guys can kind of see where we're going with this. China, is that we kind of have a threat here, and we kind of have a situation here where we may be in really dire straits a lot sooner than we expected.
Yeah, and that's
If
why
we
we
don't
brought
act
up the Hong Kong
very
thing,
fast.
even though that's in the past at this point.
Yeah,
It
Hong Kong's
sets
already
a
in the
precedence.
past, but it does set a precedence, and it does set a direction as to where these things are going. And if somebody punches you in the face every time they see you, are you going to expect them tomorrow not to punch you in the face? Because I mean, he's punched you in the face 50 times, and you don't expect them to punch you in the face the next day because you say, please don't punch me in the face. That to me, I think is unrealistic. So what we got on this, where was it at? There we go. There we go. That's the one we're looking for right there. And this one's kind of nasty. Okay. So this is from Bloomberg. All right. So this is no fly by the night, whatever. I'm not excited about quoting anything Bloomberg, but when it comes to things like this, these things are direct quotes, so you can take them as you will. But in this right here, basically what it boils down to is a Chinese economist over there is basically calling for China to take, and he's their like lead guy over there, is that if the U.S. I'll go ahead and highlight there, impose destructive sanctions on China, like sanctions against Russia, say for their human rights abuses, or say they start making moves or anything like that, we must recover Taiwan. Okay, yeah. He's the chief economist. Okay.
Yeah, and this has been obvious to anybody that's followed this for the longest time, because China keeps, the CCP party keeps, saying that Taiwan, they never accepted Taiwan's independence after the war, and that's something you can look into. I don't really want to get into that, but Taiwan did, fight for their independence, but China's never accepted that, and they keep saying, oh well, you better accept that Taiwan is, part of China, or we'll cut you off, like Hollywood, like kowtows to them, if they make any reference to Taiwan not being part of China. But really, this right here is the reason China even cares about Taiwan, because it's a tiny little island. I mean, I think it's smaller than like Vermont, like it's not super huge.
No, it's not. So
it's just a very thriving democracy, something that doesn't happen under, like the CCP's.
So here's the thing: is that this guy recognizes in China, is that they recognize what we're doing in the United States and with our partners abroad. He said right there. This is a quote from him. They are speeding up the transfer to the U.S. to build 6 factories there. We must not let all the goals of the transfer be achieved. Okay, meaning they see what we're doing. They know what we're doing. They know that we're trying to become independent of this portion of the world's manufacturing capacity in chip manufacturing. And I'm going to tell you right now, guys, chips are in everything now. There's just nothing out there. Washers, dryers, refrigerators, the televisions. Even though I think we could do with a few less of those. The computers that we use for work. A lot of loss of productivity and efficiency. You're talking about medical devices. You're talking, guys. It's in everything. I could go on for hours, of course, but it's in everything. And what they're afraid of is they're afraid of losing that dominance in that sector, because China does produce quite a bit of the lower grade, lower end type stuff, and then they also purchase stuff from TSMC. They purchase stuff from these supplies, and then they in turn put them in other devices like iPhones and stuff like that. That the things that they do build there in China. And what we've got ourselves into is in a really bad long-term relationship type situation with the Chinese. And instead of starting to build up our own capacity in these cases, what we've allowed them to take dominance in this sector, and it's probably the single most important sector, probably everywhere. I would have said food in the past. I would have said like agriculture in the past, but now it's like if you don't have the technology, it's going to affect your agriculture.
Yeah, I was gonna say it affects the food.
Yeah, it's going to affect your agriculture. It's going to affect fuel production. It's going to affect like so many different things. And I'm not a guy that's like, oh, the sky's falling. I do believe that we can fix and maintain a lot of the stuff that we have. I think we're going to be smart about it. I think we're going to have to work with the companies here. I think we're going to have to work with legislators and
we're going to need to get with
gotta pass this
the
stuff.
agriculture machine manufacturers and
John Deere
against right to repair.
Yeah,
Rossmann again can tell you all about that. But oh my gosh, they basically, you can't fix anything on a tractor without having a service contract that I've heard is something like $10,000 a year for one device.
Yeah.
They can shut it off remotely.
Yep.
They say it's, for anti-theft or whatever, but they can shut it down on them if they want to. And remotely. So. And
I'm really disappointed in seeing some of these names that especially as an American. I mean, to me, John Deere is such an American name. Caterpillar is such an American name. When I look at these manufacturers that they just don't they're part of the lifeblood of America. Seeing them go this route really hurts me, man. Because they're not thinking about the blue collar guy. They're not thinking about the hard worker guy that grew up a farmer, that put everything. Because farming is very difficult. It is a very difficult industry to be in with very low margins. And I just feel like they're not looking out for their best interest. They're not looking out for their customers' best interest. They are looking out for their shareholders' best interests. I understand that. They're just trying to see how they can milk the money out of it the most that they can, the best that they can, wherever they can. But at the same time, I think you're killing the goose. Killing the goose that laid the golden egg is because if you especially in these times where we're trying to get the supply chain back up and running again, if you're costing them so much and they're unable to produce and they're unable to do these things, it's going to really hold them back. So these things are overlapping and interrelated, but I really think that it's important that we get to a point where we can the adults in the room can sit down and say, hey, look, guys, let's do the right thing.
There needs to be more of a balance. I'm not saying people shouldn't get a return on their investment, but that needs to stop being the main focus for everything, because
you have to make a profit.
At some point, the other end of it's going to completely crash, and you're not going to make any money when nothing's being done.
No, and I'm not against these businesses. So if you're at John Deere, if you're at Apple, if you're at and I don't agree with everything you guys do, but I'm not just like this anti-corporatist type of guy. I think that people, there's cultures and there's people that get in there and they maybe they have the best of intentions and they end up making some bad decisions and stuff, not looking at the bigger picture. But I think it's really, really important to take a step back and say, okay, how's this going to affect our country? How's this going to affect our ability to move forward, keep things running, keep things producing? We got a lot of catch-up work to do. Gosh, we got a ton of catch-up work to do, especially on the technology front. Right now, we're watching as the EVs, and like people got to think about that. As the EVs start to dominate, I really want good laws in place on right to repair, man. Yeah. I really want good laws on right to repair on that kind of stuff, because these vehicles do over-the-air updates. I don't know if you guys aren't familiar with EVs. They do things called over-the-air updates. Over-the-air updates allows actual updates in the firmware of the vehicle. So if they can do these over-the-air updates and stuff like that, which I'm not completely against, if they come up with a better way to tweak and get a little more efficiency out of the motor and the batteries and stuff, that's a good thing. I think that's a really great thing. But if they're going to be doing these over-the-air updates and everything, I want there to be the ability and legislation put in place that they can't disable your vehicles, that it's against the law to disable the vehicle. Period. I don't want that there, because there are governments seeking that capability. Yeah. I want that completely outlawed. I want the people to be able to fix their own stuff or take it to a third-party repair house. I think it's very important to be able to take it to a third-party repair house, because in my experience, third-party repair houses have been more honest, cost less, and usually have greater ability and talent than somebody that just replaces the same part. It's just like, oh, I'm just going to go and replace this, and they're the only one that has access to those parts. So they'll replace an entire assembly on something when a resistor went bad, because it's just faster for them. They don't have to think about it. So you get a $1,500 repair bill, even though it took a 3-cent part and maybe $100 worth of labor to take care of.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to be as nice. I'm going to call out you corporations, like you sold our prosperity to China, for cheap labor. They stole your stuff, made it cheaper.
Oh, yeah.
And now you're punishing the American people by not allowing us to, fix our own thing because, we might steal something. We might steal, like your secret code or something,
Oh,
I will call you out on that, but otherwise I agree with most of what he just said. Seriously, get your head out of your asses.
No. Don't misinterpret what I said. I'm in agreement with you there. Don't misinterpret what I said. When I say I'm not like this anti-corporatist guy, I'm just not anti-corporatist. I'm not against a business. I'm not against people having businesses.
Oh, I'm not either.
Like it's just, and I don't want to just pick on somebody or whatever, but you are absolutely right.
It's the abuses. I'm sorry that I'm against.
I'm not going to say any names because I don't want to get sued, but I know for a fact that a company that I worked for in the past sent part of their manufacturing process over to China, and it made no economical sense. I mean, I could not figure what economical sense it made. And then once I dug into it and found out and talked to the right people within the company, I found out the reason they did that is that the Chinese government said, in order for you to sell to your product here, we want to be able to do some of your manufacturing, some of your parts, part of your process must be done here. Guess what happened? They stole the whole design. Guess what the quality of the parts that were coming back from China were? They were complete and utter trash. They may have not even been made there. And they were huge, heavy, bulky parts that cost a ton of money to ship. We're not talking about small little transistors and resistors on a board here. We're talking about some of the largest parts in the world. And they had to come over across shipping container. They'd get on over here, and the quality they would be filled with fillers that were literally dirt, stuff like that. And I got to witness that myself. And I also got to witness what happened. They stole the designs, they made their own version of it, then stopped purchasing their product. Okay? So I'm not gonna call out the name of that because again, I don't want to freaking get sued by some big company because I don't have the money to defend myself against that kind of lawsuit, and they will crush the little guy. But in those sort of cases right there, you're absolutely right. They go over there, they see cheap labor, some of it
slave labor,
right? I'm adamantly against that. So when you do that kind of thing, and then you're like, okay, we're doing it, for the profit. I'm sorry, guys. There is a certain point where morality comes into play there, where you're not just like, oh, I'm just doing it for the profit. Guess what? If there was a product that, like, if I had to keep my business, going by being immoral, by punishing somebody, by, committing atrocious acts or something like that, I'm going to just put myself out of business, because I'm going to say no. I'd rather starve to death. I'll beg on the corner for bread before and I know I could get another job anyway. I mean, I'm an electrician. I work with strippers, so get it, strip wire. So, but I could really honestly, like, go do something else anyway to make ends meet. But even if I couldn't, I wouldn't do that. There's this idea that this place where we're in, where if it's profitable, it's moral, is beyond the pale now. Okay, no, it's wrong. Okay, stop. All of our ingenuity has been stolen. All of our ideas have been stolen. We didn't learn it. We didn't learn anything from Japan when we did this with Japan. I remember when I was young enough, when Japan was the one that was making the cheaper, like, junk, right? And their economy built up and everything like that. But what they did was they took our designs. Now, they were a lot more respectful about it, I'll mind you that. But they would take our designs and then they would make the process. They were really good at improving on process efficiency in their manufacturing processes, which was wonderful. And it led to innovation. Their economy is one of the strongest economies in the world now for just a small island nation. It's great. But we also respect each other's patents and technologies, and I'm sure there's some stuff that goes on behind the scenes, but we don't steal from each other. What's happened in China is that it doesn't matter, and it's not seen over there. There's cultural differences there people don't understand. It's not seen as like an immoral thing. It's just seen as that's just business, right? And so.
See, I don't know if I agree with you there, because they're pretty protective of their stuff. I mean,
oh yeah, they are.
They buy up a lot of our land here, but if you have a company in China, you cannot own the property.
Mm-mm.
You know, as a foreign entity, you cannot, and we never should have allowed
most
foreign entities to buy.
Can't own property there.
Yeah, well, that's true.
It's all owned by the CCP.
Yeah, I think they just don't care about IP laws and patents like the CCP or whatnot. The structure there.
No, they don't care. They care about their ideology, and that's about it. And everything in their own plans. I mean, they'll sacrifice their own people, guys. I mean, come on. You think they care about us if they'll do that to their own people? So, no, I do agree with you. I think that our dealings with China have led to a lot of the mess that we're in. I don't know if this is too little too late with these investments and these chip fab things. I don't think that they're going to be able to, like, pull it off in a quick enough period of time. And I also believe that they're not, making enough of the, I can switch that over that for them. Right.
Yeah. Just going into what you're talking about,
Yeah.
I don't know that I want to. Intel chip fab.
Yep.
In Ohio.
I mean, that's a big old investment. That's $100 billion in private investment. That's
Hopefully they have a whole lot of water in Ohio, because that's something a lot of people don't realize. I can't remember. It's like many millions of gallons of water a day.
Oh yeah.
Just.
I think they've improved on the process some.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was actually reading up on that. They have improved on that process, but it's still a major component into it is the water usage. Yeah. So when they build these, they actually have to take a look at and make sure that they're not going to run into problems with the local water supplies and local government and municipalities and stuff and on those issues. But yeah, that's a big old investment. Good for you, Ohio. Thank you, Intel, for investing that in that community. These are going to be some really good, high-paying jobs in this sector. Wonderful, glad to see this moving through in the States, and it's key objective is really to reduce America's reliance on Asia for most of the manufacturing and stuff. But outside of that, you also have to put the stuff together. So we have to build out an infrastructure here where we're not just doing the chip fabs, where we're actually doing the assemblies, and a lot of that stuff can be highly automated. And when you automate that stuff, the labor advantage goes away. It really does, because automation, just beats the snot out of, as long as it can be automated realistically. Beats
Honestly,
the snot out of the cheapest
I'll
labor
point out something about the chip foundries, like the people over in the countries like Taiwan and even China has like some chip foundries. Those people get paid pretty decent, so like the labor part of it isn't that big of a difference, between it, because
then you got
there's not a whole lot of like what would be like operators in our field or whatever that are getting. Well, actually, operators get usually quite a bit more than minimum wage in manufacturing anymore. But no, these are highly skilled people, working in these fields. And I mean, I don't know what the pay structure is over there, but it's not.
It's not the low end.
Yeah, it's not like somebody that can sit there and screw on a bolt or whatever. They have to know like the process of the chips and know what to look for. They have to be the quality control and the engineer, at the same time. Like, so.
And they're working hard over there while we're trying to do this. They're working hard over there doing their thing too. And I'm not saying that there's not enough room in the global market for these things to coexist, because I believe that really things are moving. I believe there's plenty of room for it.
Honestly, I don't think China should like go to despair just so we can be prosperous again. But I think for too long we've let them get away with like their practices.
Mm-hmm.
And the few times we've tried to push back against it, it's like and we don't go that far.
We must not let all the goals of the transfer be achieved. We got to remember what they're saying over there is they're saying, like, we need to interrupt that. We need to get them by the throat before they can follow through on their independence. Because if we have chip independence, guys, that's the major player in everything. If we have the technology independence, we can produce everything and assemble everything here in the U.S. Assembly's not as big of a deal. People may not realize it. It does take time to build plants and everything like that, but assembly automation is not as it doesn't take as long to roll that out as especially small scale assembly, unlike a car manufacturer like Tesla, where they've actually made some pretty quick. If you notice how fast their plants have gone up and stuff, they actually move at a pretty decent pace themselves. But on smaller scale stuff, because you could put in one robot and it's sitting there doing its thing, and then you put in another one, and now you got twice as much, and it's scalable. It's a lot more scalable, and the cost of the robots are a lot cheaper because they're a lot smaller and stuff. So the manufacturing processes for electronics assembly and things like that, they can be rolled out relatively quickly. But we got to get that ball rolling. We got to get that going as quickly as possible. We got to light a match under this thing, because it's gonna leave us hurting. It's gonna leave us without parts. China is in our field right now. I don't know if I touched on this or not, but they're snatching up all of the used like manufacturing equipment parts and stuff. People out there listening might be familiar with, like, Alan Bradley's a name in manufacturing automation, and ABB and Yaskawa and several other brands. What you have going on is, and they did this years ago. It's not like just a recent thing. They did it years ago, and they started snatching up like used parts, used parts, new parts, overstock, old stock, new in box, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's not so horrible. Like, they saw an opportunity.
Yeah, they were making a business out of it, and I was like, oh, okay, well, at least somebody's maintaining a supply of some sort.
If we're just going to give them away because we don't want to keep them on the shelves, like,
And they snatched them up for pennies on the dollar and everything like that, and now they're selling them back to us.
But that's something we run into. There's some of the parts that we get that we order from China, and honestly, they're not way too abusive, like these sellers or whatever that we find.
Because they're competing with each other.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the lead time on the parts, on shipping. If we have a customer that's down, that's losing, $10,000, $20,000 an hour, and it's gonna take 3 weeks to ship from China,
and that's
for this one key part that they need, that there's not a workaround for,
And that's part of the problem that we're running into with some of this stuff too. It's like, we just repaired a drive for a customer that blew up the power module twice on a drive. Something on the regen didn't go right. So we needed to do a rush repair on that. They part of their plant's down because of this. So I'm looking all over the place, and the only place we're finding it is out of China. And then we're looking at a week and a half, 2 weeks at the earliest, and I can't even trust those dates because it's usually going to be typically 3 weeks or more. Sometimes we get lucky. Sometimes it comes in a decent time, but nowadays, not right now. You really don't want to trust it right now. And then I got very lucky. We a lot of searching, found one in the United States, and I was able to get it overnight, and we were able to get them up and running. But I'll tell you what, man, I mean, I feel my customers' pressure. I really do. I feel for them. I worked in maintenance. I came up in maintenance, and I understand the pressure that they're on, the production pressure that they're on. And the fact that people are already struggling and businesses are already struggling, they're understaffed, they're starved of their materials, they're having a hard time making production as it is, so their profitability is coming way down, and they may already not be profitable because they're not running at capacity like they need to be running to be profitable. Then let's go ahead and throw in a wrench in the gears where they're going to be down for 3 weeks for a part. So yeah, we've got a lot of issues. This all kind of overlaps and ties together. I think some of the key takeaways from this though is that the direction and what we need to be doing. Right to repair. We need to make sure that it's clearly there. You have the right to fix, buy and purchase the parts, everything for the stuff you buy, whatever it is. Period.
I mean,
Period.
I'll make the argument for the corporations that, like, it's a gray area, and I don't know if I've ever been too comfortable with, like, to an extent, like, reverse engineering, like, the software part of it or whatever, you know. But as long as they have a replacement available, though, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess is the caveat I would put out there. But, you know, I can understand, like, a lot of man hours and, you know, like, engineers, like...
Yeah,
working that, like, went into, like, you know, designing something. Yeah.
I'd hate for somebody to steal my code. I do the bulk of the programming. I'd hate for somebody to just take my code, just directly copy it and put it in another machine, and then just make money off my code like that or whatever. Yeah, that would upset me. I wouldn't want somebody to just steal what I did to make money off of it. But I have no problem, zero problem with anybody looking at my code and using it to troubleshoot a problem, like none at all. I don't have any problem whatsoever at all with that. So and why would I? Like, why would I have a problem with that? Of course I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
And I think most engineers probably feel that way. They just want to make sure that they earn a living for the work that they put in. And I think we can all agree on that, being fair about that. So if there's things that need to be protected within there, stuff like that, I don't have a problem with that. Software internally.
Yeah, but I don't feel like the right to repair really, like, encompasses that.
No,
honestly, you know?
No, I don't think so either and stuff.
But
like,
they'll make the argument. I mean, I haven't looked at enough of it, but I have
Yeah.
seen that you know, they're afraid you might be able to reverse engineer and they've
But
already let enough of that go on. Like,
Wouldn't
why
you
are they
agree,
going
though?
to punish us?
Wouldn't
know?
you agree that a lot of those arguments are bad faith arguments when you
Really?
understand them, when you take a look at it and you understand the technical
Yeah.
side of it,
Yeah.
and then you hear their arguments, you see their arguments, you're like that's kind of BS.
Yeah.
Like, you see their arguments and they're against the right to repair, and I'm like, you're full of crap.
Yeah.
You're really full of crap, because as a guy that understands how this tech works, and then I hear their argument, I'm just like, it's stupid to me. You know, you're trying to tell me that water's not wet. You know, basically, it just their arguments don't really hold weight with me. I don't appreciate that. Now, if they came with the argument and they said, well, these portions of it, we want to protect our code. We don't want that to be open. Things of that nature. You know, our manufacturing process, like how we make this thing or whatever. You know, it's a tightly held trade secret and everything, because we don't want China to steal it or whatever. You know, I understand that. Like, I get that. I can respect that. I don't have a problem with that. But the repair guys aren't looking at your manufacturing process. They don't know how you're making it.
I just wish policymakers would spell this out more, and I don't know,
yeah.
maybe they don't know, but
Come
people
on.
are just like, oh, they're attacking China. Oh, what it is. It's not. It's just their practices.
When's the last time
like,
you've
I'm
seen,
sorry. Like,
when's the last time you've seen a blue collar policymaker? Have you seen? Has somebody point to me where there's a blue collar?
Maybe. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to name any names. Maybe one in my life, but
I'm not. It doesn't come to mind. I don't know guys that are like, hey, it's blue collar guy that came up, understands how these things are made, understands how the sausage gets made. When's the last time we've seen a leader like that?
I know people have ran, but that's not the people that get the super PACs. And,
no, no. They're too understandable and too relatable then with most of America. Because most of America is working class. We just get our voices stomped all over and everything like that. But so it's very important. Reach out. When you're talking to your legislators, when you're expressing your views on these things. Obviously, the economy is probably number one in everybody's minds right now. So we're talking about the economy. We're talking about the other things that are core to you and your family, the issues that really bother you and stuff. But if you can remember, please bring up the right to repair and say, hey, look, like we need the freedom to take care of our own business. We need to be able to fix our own stuff. The farmers need to be able to fix their own stuff. We could really use your back out. Like, we could really use you having our back out there to help keep things flowing, keeping people fed, keeping people in jobs. Please help us by pushing for right to repair. This is definitely something that we can all keep putting in the bug here. And these cutouts where they're like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to not... we'll do that for phones and tablets, but we're not going to do that for agricultural equipment and stuff like that.
Yeah, that just doesn't make any sense.
It pisses me off.
That's absolutely the more important place.
Pisses me off.
We need right to repair.
I want to know... What I want to know is, in New York, I want to know who paid them to cut that out. Because somebody paid them to cut that out, and I want to know who. Because that's BS. There's no reason why a farmer shouldn't be able to fix his own stuff. For the last 200 years, farmers have been able to fix their own stuff. Yeah. And all of a sudden, they can't fix their own stuff. It's ridiculous. Treating everybody like they're children and stupid. Farmers are some of the most intelligent people you ever come across. They have to be like a businessman, mechanic, electrician. They got to know everything about weather and seeds and economics. And they're balancing this huge load of information at all times. But people want to think of them as just, rednecks or something like that. I don't know what in the world these stupid politicians are thinking, but the important thing is that we need to back them up. I mean, they literally grow our food, for crying out loud. So we definitely need to back them up, and it affects the price of your food. So you get something out of it too, and that's the other part of it. I think the other part of it too is politicians aren't going to do much for you, so you can push there as much as you want, as much as you can. But I think it's also important that we and Louis Rossmann actually offers some free stuff. He does some stuff for kids, really cool stuff. Get your kids interested in some of this repair stuff and electronics, working on the car, fixing stuff around the house, that kind of thing. Working with your hands can be very rewarding. You can learn a lot. It doesn't mean that they're not going to still go on to be an engineer or a doctor or whatever, but somebody that that takes an interest in that can go really far. It's always a great job. If you can fix stuff, my daddy said, if you can fix stuff, you'll never go hungry. And so it's a good talent to have. I believe him for that, and it's held true my whole life. I think it'll continue to hold true. But the other thing though is our interaction with China. And you've heard us say it before, and we're going to keep banging the drum. Stop buying their crap. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is that I know right now we're stuck having to buy some of their stuff, but when the option's there and the chance is there to buy domestic closer to home, do so. If you're in America, buy American. If you're in Europe, buy from your Germany, buy German. If you're from India, buy from India. If you're Australia, buy Australian. I understand that you can't do that for everything right now. Keep pushing back. Keep demanding that you're making this close to home. It's good for you. It's good for your economy. It's good for your local economy. For the environmentalists out there, it's much, much better for the environment. I mean, I have some disagreements on the environmental front. When people present certain data, it's not done in good faith, so I have some arguments about it or whatever. But we absolutely do have issues there that need to be addressed. I just feel like people are addressing the wrong ones. I really wanted to address the right ones. So it's much, much better for the environment. The less fuel we use, that means there's less demand. That brings the prices down. It all has a positive effect, guys. I see no negative in people trying to make things as close to home as humanly possible. I don't see any downside to that at all. You know, somebody's going, oh, well, but the cost of labor in Malaysia is $1 cheaper or whatever. So I'm like, not for long. Two, you got to ship it and get it all over here, and that means a whole other slew of issues that we've kind of talked about before. But really, you want to avoid these long distance trips across the thing, and for a temporary gain, just for the time being, and you're gonna lower the the economic power of the people around you closest to you, and then like shift it over here, and then eventually you're just trying to like lower everybody down to the same point, and I don't think that's a good idea. Do I want these countries to do well? Yes, I do. Do I want the Chinese people to do well? Absolutely, man. I want them to do well, but I also want them to be free. I want them to have freedom of press. I want to have freedom of speech. I want them to have some of the same rights and freedoms we do. Absolutely. I don't know if I'll ever see that in my lifetime. I mean, I would love to if I could, but I don't wish ill on these people in these countries. I want them to be self-sufficient as we should be self-sufficient. And then maybe only we're going to end up trading raw materials that just isn't available otherwise in the countries. And that doesn't mean that it can't be available, like the different chemistries going into the new EV stuff. China's buying up lithium mines. Like, I think it was 7 lithium mines out of Africa I heard about the other day.
Yeah.
We need to up our lithium production here in the United States. We have lithium right here in North Carolina. There's actually a mining company that's providing lithium for Tesla. There's a bunch of lithium out in California. Good luck getting them to move on any kind of mining stuff. But let's be smart about this. Let's not try to ship all of our problems overseas. If we want to do them cleaner, let's try to do them cleaner here.
Yeah, well, and I think we've touched on it before, but like, I think part of the mindset why people are okay pushing to third world countries, like in my lifetime, is like, oh, we don't have to deal with the environmental impact here.
It's not in my backyard.
Exactly.
Right?
That's not a good mindset either. We need to think about how to do it cleaner here.
I can't see it, therefore it doesn't exist.
So
I can't see it, so you don't get to see how the sausage is made. But I'm still hopeful. I do think that we're going to be facing some hard times. I do think we're going to face some additional hard times. But a lot of these things, a lot of these problems, like we said before, from the very first episode, they overlap. And when you get down to the core like issues and everything, they stem from some of the same problems. And moving in that same direction, like buying locally, the change in the culture where we stop trying to throw everything away. I would love to I think TVs are just as good as I'd ever need at this point.
Yeah.
Like the picture is so good. It's like it's a better experience than going to the movie theater where I got like the bladder of a 5-year-old child, so like I can't hold it for 3 freaking hours, especially when I drink a giant gulp when I'm sitting there and everything. But so it's a much more pleasant experience at home for the most part for me anyway now.
I still like the movie theater, but that's a whole nother story.
Some people have to be there, right? But,
well, certain movies. I mean, very, very select few movies are I feel very awesome in.
I mean, you're not talking about those kind of movies, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
The other kind.
Okay. Not the kind that Pee Wee Herman got in trouble for? Okay. I just making sure.
I neither confirm nor deny.
I was afraid of that. So, when we're talking about...
those avatars, I tell you.
Yeah. So, when we're talking about just making a difference and pushing back against this sort of stuff, and you really actually start to understand that it's the same sort of basic core tenets that fix a lot of these problems, that really do fix a lot of these problems. So, do you want to say anything else before we cut out?
Just hopefully somebody out there is watching this, and if they are, like, leave a comment. I mean, I've seen views, rate rising, but leave a comment and let us know. Like,
let us know what we got wrong.
Let us know what we got wrong. Like, ask us questions. Challenge us. We'd like to hear from you. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut it off here because I think my air conditioning went to sleep because I got one of those stupid Nests. Yay, technology. And because we're a little bit past our normal working hours here, and it is boiling. And I don't want to be next to this guy when he starts to sweat. So, you guys have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful week. God bless you all. Thank you for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Share the video if you agree with something in it. And please, or if you disagree, please leave comments, guys. Just tell me, where you agree, don't agree. If you have an idea that you really feel could make the difference, just leave in a comment. We'll be quick to respond as we can. And you guys just take it easy. Thank you for tuning in.
All right, thank you.